In improved third generation guise, Vauxhall's Corsa Supermini finally justifies its strong sales figures on genuine merit, sharper good looks and slick design, also matched in this version by more efficient engines and a sharper driving experience. Over the last few years, we've all had to change our perceptions of exactly what a small little hatchback, a supermini, actually is. After all, the small urban runabout role that models like this used to perform is now covered by little city cars, leaving today's supermini as a much more grown-up thing, safer, more spacious and able to cover longer distances. But as any teenager will tell you, being grown up can also mean being boring. At its launch in 2007, this third generation Vauxhall Corsa wasn't alone in offering a larger car feel, but without the kind of spark and vitality that once made models like this so much fun. And that wasn't something that Vauxhall could afford to leave alone in the face of competition from an arch rival as dynamically adept as Ford's Fiesta. Hence, this improved version with its sharper responses, introduced at the same time as engine tweaks, made this Corsa one of the most fuel-efficient and eco-conscious choices in its sector. Plus, there's a redesigned front end for a more upmarket look that's more in keeping with other larger Vauxhall models. But will all this be enough to lift this Corsa clear of more recently introduced rivals? Let's find out. Now, there's never been too much wrong with the way that a Corsa responds on the road. It just wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And with ordinary being something that Vauxhall isn't too comfortable with these days, things had to change. On the evidence of my drive in this improved third generation model, that seems to be happening. The changes themselves don't sound very huge. Tweaked power steering for extra driving feel, plus changes to springs, dampers and anti-roll bars. But together they add up to quite a lot. Not enough to make this as sharp as a Fiesta, but enough to get this Vauxhall quite close, at the same time as providing a more relaxed, family-friendly drive. So, if you've owned or tried a Mark III Corsa before, what do you notice about this one? Well, the electric power steering, which on the original version was so overlight and detached that it felt like you were at the wheel of a computer game, now decently communicates what the front wheels are doing. As for the spring and damper tweaks, well, yes, the ride is slightly better over poorer surfaces, but the effect here is less noticeable. To be fair, it didn't really need to be. Though the ride is certainly on the firm side, especially with the stiffer suspension that you get on sportier models, that's actually quite a boon when it comes to hustling the car over twistier roads if you've got potentially travel-sick children in the back. And this Corsa was, and still is, arguably one of the most refined cars in its class, something that adds greatly to its long-distance credibility. Under the bonnet, Vauxhall has refettled virtually all the engines on offer, which was necessary in the case of the entry-level 1 litre and 1.2 litre petrol units, which sometimes struggled a little faced with the task of hauling up to 1,244 kilograms of fully laden Corsa. Small but significant 5 PS improvements in both of these cases have led to engine outputs of either 65 PS for the 1 litre or 85 PS for the 1.2, but it's still better if funds or the deal you're offered permits to stretch up to the 1.4, which has a 10 PS improvement which boosts its output up to 100 PS. There's still a 192 PS 1.6 litre turbo option available at the top of the range in the VXR model for hot hatch fans. Diesel drivers can benefit from Vauxhall's EcoFlex technology with the 75 PS version of the brand's trusty 1.3 litre CDTI unit, but they'll get much more by opting for this engine in greener, more frugal 95 PS EcoFlex form. Now, despite its Enviro remit, this particular variant has sporty suspension, which makes it fun to drive, and it's probably pick of the Corsa range overall. It has a decent amount of pulling power with tweaks to the low-down engine torque. There's 190 Newton meters of it on offer, which makes it feel decently fast, more so than the 11.5 second 0 to 60 sprint time and 110 mile an hour top speed figure might suggest. If that really isn't enough, then Vauxhall also offers a 1.7 litre CDTI 130 PS diesel. No longer just a shopping trolley, this third generation Corsa has real impact. Though it shares its steering, suspension and platform with a Fiat Punto, this Vauxhall has a very different look and feel, especially since the introduction of a package of aesthetic changes announced early in 2011 that have given this Vauxhall a smilier, friendlier look. There are chrome-trimmed eagle-eye headlamps borrowed from the larger Meriva MPV, complete with integrated daytime running lights. And these flank a lower, wider front grille that sits above a revised bumper and features a prominent chrome strip upon which lies the familiar Griffin badge. Moving backwards, the aesthetic impact depends a great deal on the body style that you've chosen. Though both 3 and 5-door body shapes occupy pretty much the same footprint on the road, Vauxhall has tried to give each of them their own separate appeal. The 3-door is of course the sportier choice with its rear wheel arch bulges and steeply raked rear screen, leaving this 5-door body shape to be the family option, making the most of this design's 4-metre body length with its more upright tailgate and larger glass area. Climb inside and the Corsa can also impress. Though Spanish made, it has a solid Germanic quality to its build, complemented by slick design that catches the eye. The round air vents are normally less brightly finished than this, and the smart piano black finish on the centre console give a modern integrated look, further complemented by lovely touches like the translucent lighting on the window switches and some of the dashboard buttons. Though it's a pity that this, along with more important touches like height adjustment for the driver's seat and reach adjustment for the steering wheel, it's a pity that they're limited to plusher models like this one. In the back there's plenty of room for the 2 children who'll normally occupy this space. They can bring a friend as well to sit in the middle who'll also be fairly comfortable. There's also reasonable room for 2 fully sized adults to sit back here, despite the lack of the kind of seats that slide backwards and forwards that you find in, say, a Toyota Yaris. And those adults will appreciate features like the way that the rear seat backrest can recline for greater comfort and longer distances. Out back, there's 285 litres of luggage room with all the seats in place. And if you plan on making the most of that, then you're probably going to want to reposition the 2-stage boot floor to its lowest setting, below which you've also got a further concealed compartment. You might also want to reposition the parcel shelf. It sits in a useful channel just behind the rear seat backs here. If that's still not enough, then you're going to want to push forward the split folding rear seat, or at least it is split folding in plusher models. Basic versions get a fixed rear bench like this one. Push it forward and you can free up 1100 litres of total space. History over 3 generations of Corsa has taught us that UK car buyers quite like Vauxhall Supermini, and one reason why lies in its affordability. List pricing suggests that you'll be paying somewhere in the £10,000 to £18,000 bracket for your Corsa, with a premium of just over £400 if you want the extra versatility of 5 doors rather than 3, and a premium of around £1,000 if you want diesel power over an equivalent petrol unit. But that doesn't really give you a very good idea of this Vauxhall's eminent affordability, despite list pricing that's sharper than it used to be. You need to add in dealer offers to really get that, and once you have done, I'd be surprised if you didn't arrive at pricing for your chosen Corsa, which makes it very comparable to this Vauxhall's arch rival Ford's Fiesta. You should also find it eminently comparable to other Supermini rivals like Peugeot's 207, Renault's Clio, Volkswagen's Polo, Seat's Ibiza, Fiat's Punto Evo or Citroen's C3. There are, it's true, cheaper bargain basement Superminis out there, but they lack this Vauxhall's sophistication. Now, under the bonnet of both 3 and 5-door models, petrol people will be mainly choosing between a 65 PS 1 litre unit, an 85 PS 1.2 and a 100 PS 1.4 litre engine, though there is still the frantic 192 PS 1.6 litre turbo power plant for VXR hot hatch fans. Diesel drivers who are tempted by the 75 PS entry-level 1.3 litre CDTI should, in my view, be directed to the more powerful yet greener 95 PS version of the same unit. There is also a 130 PS 1.7 litre CDTI option, but that's an awful lot of grunt, probably more than most diesel drivers will need in such a small car. It's also worth mentioning that if you order your Corsa with one of the pokier engines, then you may also get one of the sportier trim levels with stiffer suspension that you may not want. The moral is to try before you buy. You'll need a reasonable level of spec for a reasonable level of equipment, but all models do come with remote central locking, electric mirrors and a CD stereo. Of course, further up the range and on the options list, there's a whole roster of big car style equipment, including headlamps that follow you around corners and an enhanced understeer control system. Another neat option is a flex fit integrated bike rack that slides out of the rear bumper. Also worth investigating is the optional Touch and Connect multimedia system, which uses a 5-inch touchscreen featuring both 2D and 3D graphics for the navigation system, an aux-in point, Bluetooth compatibility for your mobile phone and USB connectivity too. Safety-wise, there's a minimum of 2 airbags and 6 on most models, though unfortunately you have to pay extra for ESP stability control. ABS brakes are standard, of course, and when you activate them at speeds of above 18 miles an hour, the rear brake lights flash to warn following motorists. Should the airbags deploy, then the hazards will flash too for extra warning to those behind. Neat. Across the range, Corsas are around 13% more frugal than they used to be, and greener too, with most models putting out less than 125 grams per kilometre of CO2. Indeed, Vauxhall reckons that it sells more sub 125 grams per kilometre of CO2 models than any other brand. The economy star is the 95 PS 1.3 litre CDTI diesel EcoFlex model that manages 78.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle thanks to a start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, waiting at the lights or when you're stuck in urban traffic. And it's pretty green as well, putting out no more than 95 grams per kilometre of CO2, so you won't have to pay the London congestion charge. Both these figures are slightly better than those returned by a comparably priced Ford Fiesta E-Kinetic. Enough said. If you'd prefer a petrol, then you'll be pleased to find that both 1 litre and 1.2 litre variants are now in more affordable VED tax bands. The 1 litre now returning 117 grams per kilometre of CO2. Even the petrol 1.4 is a 50 miles to the gallon car these days, managing 49.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. To help ordinary drivers get close to these kinds of returns on a real-world day-to-day basis, most models feature a gear shift indicator built into the instrument cluster, advising you when to change up for best economy returns. Residual values, well, they won't be amongst the strongest in the sector, but you'll be able to balance that against the sharp deal you'll probably be offered up front. Insurance groups range between 1 and 9 for mainstream models on the 1 to 50 grouping scale. It's clear that this Corsa is crucial for Vauxhall, hence their decision to move it forward from middle-of-the-road mediocrity with this well-judged package of improvements. Cleaner, greener and better to drive, this sharper looking contender now either matches or beats most more recently introduced rivals. Plus, the things that we liked about this car at its original launch are still in place. The practical use of space, the classy cabin, the big car feel. Add to that the wide range available and the likely deals on offer, and you've a supermini that more than ever needs to remain high on any family's shopping list.